Boring Greek myths for sleep. Greek gods explained. Welcome. Tonight, let us gently drift into the mellow world of mythology, not the exciting, boring Greek myths for sleep. Greek gods explained. Welcome. Tonight, let us gently drift into the mellow world of mythology, not the exciting, heroic kind, but the slow, mildly confusing realm of divine family trees, strangely named gods, and tales that seem to go nowhere in particular. Get comfortable, let your breath settle, and allow yourself to be lulled to sleep by the oddly repetitive universe of the ancient Greek pantheon. Just the kind of vague, all-encompassing chaos that feels like a Monday morning fog. From this sleepy haze emerged the first primordial beings. In the beginning, there was chaos before there was anything. There was chaos. Not exciting chaos. Not thrilling destruction. One was Cronus, who had a habit of swallowing his own children, but not in a fast, snappy way. It was a sluggish, inevitable thing, like forgetting to pay your electricity bill and realizing it 3 weeks later. There was Gaia, the Earth. She didn't rush. She emerged slowly, taking her time. Hera mostly wanted Zeus to stop turning into animals and seducing mortals. No urgency, just a calm, vast landscape of land and mountains. He overthrew Cronus in a rather meandering sequence of events involving a rock disguised as a baby and a lot of waiting around. And then came Uranus, the sky, who sort of hovered above her like a ceiling fan that never turns off. Ironically spent most of her time being furious about her own. He invited his siblings, Hera, Poseidon, Hestia, Demeter, and Hades. They made up the board of directors for the universe. But if you think anything happened quickly from here, you're mistaken. Not evil, just gloomy. Likes dogs. Married Persephone, sort of. Some were giants. Together, they had many children. Some were the Titans, the very complicated family of the gods, but not in exciting courtroom drama ways. They argued about things like who gets what title. Poseidon wanted the sea. Hades got the underworld. Cronus eventually had a son named Zeus, and Zeus was ambitious, but not in a hurry. Once in charge, Zeus moved into a nice home on Mount Olympus. The gods mostly argued. Has winged sandals. Possibly the fastest, but also the most sarcastic. And so, the reign of the Olympian gods began. Slowly. Very, very slowly. Married to Aphrodite. Don't ask how that happened. No one knows. An overview of very important gods who did very specific and yet vaguely defined things known for thunder, sky, and excessive romantic tangents. Also known for not being a good husband. At all. Zeus, king of the gods. Hera, goddess of marriage. Like that time Echo fell in love with Narcissus. But he only loved himself. And Echo slowly turned into just an echo. And you thought your to-do list was bad. No one is in a rush. Not even destiny. Especially not destiny. Let yourself float among the clouds of Olympus, where the gods are snoring softly and the myths are always just beginning, but never quite finishing. Poseidon, god of the sea, sometimes earthquakes, often grumpy, carries a trident because it looks cool. Hades, god of the underworld, the most domestic of all deities. She rarely left the fireplace, which suited her fine. She enjoyed watching the flames flicker. He doesn't say much, just closes eyelids. Not breakfast cereals, just wheat. When she's sad, nothing grows. Quiet. Warm. Uneventful. Slowly. With a blanket of fog. Demeter, goddess of harvest and cereals. And a lot of silence in between. And duties. Almost. But then he looked back too soon. Because he just couldn't wait 5 more steps. Tragic, but also kind of predictable. Born from Zeus's forehead, which isn't the most conventional birth method. Not scary, just the final nap. An eternal weekend. She doesn't speak. She just arrives, and darkness follows. Not threatening, just quiet. Athena, goddess of wisdom and war strategy. But fragrant, but mostly. They tell us that even the gods were slow, flawed, repetitive, and very dramatic. Like a soap opera in slow motion. Then he became a flower, a daffodil, pretty, quiet, static. Apollo, god of light, music, prophecy, archery, medicine, and poetry. A little too ambitious with his LinkedIn skills section. Tragic. Makes stories out of clouds. Fills your sleep with half-remembered places you've never been. Just stopped running and became bark and leaves. Apollo didn't seem to mind. Eventually, she turned into a sunflower, always turning her face to follow the light. Born from sea foam. That's not a metaphor. It's very literal and rather confusing. Still waiting. Still staring. Artemis, goddess of the hunt and the moon. Likes forests. Avoids people. Ars, god of war. Not tactics, just raw. Chaotic battle energy. Yells a lot. Not invited to parties. The rock always rolls back down. Every single time. Aphrodite, goddess of love and beauty. Hermes, messenger god. So she turned into a laurel tree. He made wreaths from her branches, with titles. Let the stories unspool like ancient scrolls written in dreams. Hephaestus, god of the forge, makes weapons. Chapter 4. The myths that wander in circles. Most myths don't really end. They just sort of fade. Or Sisyphus, who rolls a rock uphill every day. And they didn't complain. They just existed. Then there's Orpheus, who almost saved his wife from the underworld. The sleepiest lessons. Greek myths tell us many things. Sometimes they're grand life lessons. Sometimes they're just weird. So as you lie here, still and calm, know this. Even in the world of gods, everything takes time. Let the names drift away now. The lesser-known gods who still had jobs. Not every Greek god got the spotlight. Some lived in the margins, quietly managing very specific things. She didn't want to marry him. Hestia, goddess of the hearth. The uneventful hours between hero quests and mortal follies. They were the background music of the divine realm. Eros, god of love, son of Aphrodite, shot arrows that caused people to fall in love. Accidentally, frequently, not very organized, balances scales. She's like karma, but more patient. If something goes wrong, or sometimes if it just gets awkward, someone turns into a tree. Forgot to eat, or a flower, or missed. Hypnos, god of sleep. You've probably met him. He drifts in gently, on soft wings. Thanatos, god of peaceful death. The cousin of Hypnos. You're a plant. Nothing else happens. You just grow. Nyx, goddess of night. Mother of many. Nemesis, goddess of retribution. Keeps records. Morpheus, god of dreams. Forms illusions. They lived in the gaps of stories. The long pauses. Why everyone got turned into a plant. Greek myths have a curious pattern. Daphne was chased by Apollo. Narcissus stared into a pool too long. Thought his reflection was someone else. Fell in love with it. Hyacinthus was loved by Apollo, hit by a discus, and then turned into a hyacinth. Cliti pined for the sun god Helios. She stared at him all day. It seems in Greece. If you're emotional long enough, poof. The underworld is just a lot. The Greek underworld wasn't a place of fire and demons. It was more like a bureaucratic waiting room. When people died, Hermes escorted their souls down. Not quickly, just a leisurely stroll. He wore winged sandals, but he wasn't in a hurry. At the gates stood Cerberus, the three-headed dog. Friendly, but firm. No one leaves, ever. Inside were several regions. The fields of asphodel, grey, neutral, like the wallpaper in a dentist's office. Tantalus, forever thirsty. Ixion, spinning on a wheel. Forever repeating tasks, like a broken to-do list. Tartarus, where the truly bad go. Not many, just a few. Sisyphus, pushing his rock. The Elysian fields, for the noble and heroic. Peaceful, full of soft grass. No action, just infinite springtime. Like a dream of retirement. Even in death, the Greeks believed in routine. Endless, repetitive, mildly inconvenient routines. The gods and their pets, objects, and transportation choices. You can tell a lot about a deity by how they traveled, what they wore, and what strange creature accompanied them. Zeus rode storms. He hurled lightning. Dramatic, but overdone. Poseidon had a chariot pulled by sea horses. Literal horses, but fishy. Wet and weird. Hades preferred a helmet of invisibility. He didn't like attention or company. Ours rode a blood-soaked chariot. But nobody really wanted to ride with him. Athena carried an aegis, a magical shield with the head of Medusa on it. Effective, but rather intense. Dionysus, god of wine, rode a leopard-drawn cart. Surrounded by dancing satyrs, every commute was a parade. Hermes, as usual, had his winged sandals and a staff with snakes. He liked to multitask. Everyone had something. A prop, a pet, an aesthetic. They didn't need them, but it added flair, and flair is important. Poor judgment. Details are fussy, as is tradition when you're eternal. Hercules and the 12 extremely inconvenient tasks. 4 hours, maybe days. Eventually used the lion's own claws. Its hide couldn't be pierced by weapons, so Hercules wrestled it. Why? because Hera was annoyed. As usual. And when Hera was annoyed, things got unnecessarily complicated. Slow, but effective. 4 miles. No shortcut, but also very cursed. But to make up for a tragic misunderstanding involving mind control, a crime of passion, and perhaps again. And again. It was like battling a very stubborn weed. Hercules, also known as Heracles, was very strong, very heroic. Hercules had to complete 12 labors not to save the world. But the labors, not fast, not flashy, just long and exhausting. Slay the Nemean lion. So was Hercules. Very slowly. Didn't make friends. Kill the Lernaean Hydra. Cut off one head to grow back. He tried. And walked. There's always a quest, or a war, or a prophecy. Capture the golden hind, a fast deer. He chased it for a year, a full year. It was unharmed, just tired. So she threw a golden apple labeled to the fairest. Predictable chaos followed. They asked Paris, a Trojan prince, to judge. It worked. Eventually, he chose Aphrodite. She promised him the love of the most beautiful woman, Helen. Unfortunately, Helen was already married, but mostly over bruised egos and ancient grudges. Capture the Erymonthian boar. Big pig. Angry. He lured it into snow. Then he carried it, cleaned the Orgian stables. Thousands of cows. No one had cleaned it, ever. He rerouted rivers, because mopping was not enough. Geryon had 3 bodies. It was awkward. Hercules took the cows, and Greece launched a 10-year war over one woman. He asked Atlas to get them. Atlas didn't want to take the sky back, drive away the Stymphalian birds. They had metal feathers. No one knows why. He used clanging noises to scare them. There was negotiating. It was awkward. But then there was confusion. Fighting broke out. He got the belt, the 3-headed underworld dog. He didn't hurt it, just asked politely. Cerberus agreed. Surprisingly cooperative, but not for long. The gods rarely let mortals nap for eternity. Capture the Cretan bull. Big. Wild. Bullish. He caught it. That's it. Not much more happened. Steal the mares of Diomedes. They ate people. He fed them Diomedes. Problem solved. Disturbing, but efficient. Because he got distracted by storms, witches, and cyclops. Retrieve the belt of Hippolyta. At first, she agreed. Steal the cattle of Geryon. Fetch the apples of the Hesperides. No one knew where they were. Ended with fire, and left almost everyone miserable. His men were turned into pigs, but she eventually changed them back. Then they stayed, for a while, but with a golden apple. Capture Cerberus. They just sat around eating dreamy flowers that made you forget things. Odysseus had to drag his men back to the boat. When it was over, Hercules rested, then revealed himself, then yelled, then fought. A deep, dreamless sleep. But he didn't head home right away. Or maybe he tried. But the sea had other plans, and so did the gods, but then had to hide under sheep. It wasn't elegant. The Trojan War, a very long, petty argument, the Trojan War started not with a battle. At a wedding, Eris, goddess of discord, wasn't invited. Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite argued over it. But full of detours, Paris took her to Troy anyway. Highlights of the war: few. It was mostly long sieges, moody gods picking sides, ships stuck in windless harbors, Achilles sulking, then fighting, then dying, a wooden horse that everyone should have been suspicious of. Eventually, Troy fell. The Greeks sailed home, docked slowly. Many didn't make it. Odysseus took 10 more years. In summary, a war that started over an apple. Odysseus forgets to go home. Odysseus, king of Ithaca, survived the Trojan War. What followed was a 10-year detour, not full of action. He met the Lotus Eaters. He blinded a Cyclops, which was dramatic. He spent a year with Circe, a sorceress. He visited the underworld. Again. Lots of walking and echoing voices. Past the sirens. Tied himself to the mast to resist their songs. No one jumped overboard. It was mostly safe. Faced Scylla and Charybdis, a sea monster, and a whirlpool. Lost a few men. Kept going. Stayed 7 years with Calypso, a lonely nymph. She loved him. He just waited to leave. Eventually, after 2 decades away, he returned to Ithaca. His house was full of unwelcome guests. He disguised himself as a beggar. Then finally, he slept. Medusa was just minding her own business before she had snakes for hair and a reputation for turning people into stone. Medusa was a perfectly ordinary woman, a priestess of Athena, even. She liked quiet temples, moonlight, and maybe the occasional soft breeze. Not respectfully. And Athena, instead of blaming Poseidon, punished Medusa to the far edge of the world, to be alone. She didn't chase anyone, didn't attack cities. She simply existed peacefully, surrounded by statues of people who didn't listen to warnings. She transformed her into a gorgon, with serpents for hair, and a petrifying gaze. But one day, Poseidon visited the temple. Medusa fled. Poor Medusa never saw it coming, mostly because she wasn't looking. Carried in a bag, then used to turn other enemies into stone. A fate she didn't ask for, but one that continued long after her end. Slowly, until one day, Perseus arrived. He had a shiny shield, winged sandals, a mirrored approach, and a mission. Her head was removed, the end of an era, not with a bang, but with a very long sigh. No revenge arc, no rise, just a quiet tragedy, the kind you almost forget, until you close your eyes. Like Mnemosyne, the titan of memory, she stayed quiet. No one noticed her. The titans mumbled, wandered, debated logistics. The Olympians threw rocks. Some of them missed. If you go to war, declared a war. Titanomachi, the titans who were too tired to try. Before the Olympians, there were the titans, majestic, ancient, and largely uninterested in conflict. But Zeus insisted. He rallied his siblings. It lasted 10 years. He tried very hard not to, which made it worse. Not because of strategy, not because of strong resistance, but because no one really wanted to commit. Eventually, the Titans were defeated. Cronus was sent to Tartarus, not swiftly, just escorted. Their meaning only made sense after everything had gone wrong, especially Paris or bullet points. But no, just hazy dreams, vague signs, and birds flying in weird directions. Smart. Others weren't even punished. They were forgotten. Oceanus, the river that encircled the world, just kept flowing, avoided the whole thing. The Titan rebellion was more of a shrug than a roar. The most famous was at Delphi, where Pythia, the priestess, sat on a tripod, inhaled volcanic vapors, and muttered cryptic phrases like prophecies, omens, and misinterpretations. The ancient Greeks loved a good prophecy, but not one of them ever read the fine print. There were oracles everywhere. You will conquer. The wooden wall shall not fall. Beware the man with one sandal. Just chuckles. None of these were helpful. Or draw the vase painting. They weren't responsible for deadlines. Croesus, king of Lydia, heard he would destroy a great empire. He did. His own. Oedipus was told he'd kill his father and marry his mother. Paris was prophesied to bring ruin to Troy. Everyone ignored it. Part of the world, but not quite useful anymore. Athena popped into a strategy session once in a while, then left early. Ours started bar fights, then wandered away before anyone noticed. Just handmade. Dye wings, surprisingly lightweight, surprisingly fragile. Prophecies were like riddles without answers. He and his son Icarus were trapped on the island of Crete, thanks to a very long backstory involving a labyrinth, a minotaur, and an extremely frustrated king. If the gods had wanted people to understand, they would have used a checklist. She remembered everything, even the boring bits. Not bird wings, not dragon wings. The muses who just wanted you to sit down and write something. There were 9 muses. Goddesses of inspiration, but not of action. They didn't grant success, just gentle nudges and sighs. Everything ended badly. She didn't smile much. Each muse had a domain. Calliope, epic poetry, long poems, preferably about battles that went nowhere. Clio, history. Eroto, love poetry, but mostly yearning, endless yearning. Euterpe, music, especially sad flute solos. The wax melted, the wings sagged. He fell, slowly, sadly. Melpomene, tragedy. Polyhymnia, sacred hymns. The quiet ones. Terpsichore, dance. The slow kind. Arms waving in the wind. Thalia, comedy, but not belly laughs. Urania, astronomy, stars, constellations. That one. Goat-shaped one no one remembers. They whispered ideas gently. You still had to write the poem or sing the song. Why the gods never really retired, you might think immortality would get boring. And you'd be right. After centuries of meddling, the gods didn't stop. They just slowed down. Zeus still rumbled the sky every now and then. Hera still watched marriages with side-eye. Poseidon occasionally made a wave to big. They didn't rule anymore, just lingered, like guests who forgot to leave, like ancient furniture. The temples crumbled, the offerings stopped, but the gods remained, waiting, watching, stretching out their long, unending existence. Sometimes, if you listen at night, you might hear them arguing about something that no longer matters. Why Icarus forgot to check the weather forecast. Once upon a myth, there lived a man named Daedalus, a genius inventor with too many ideas and too few exit plans to escape. Daedalus made wings out of wax and feathers, especially when they're about flight mechanics and wax melting points. Before takeoff, Daedalus gave a detailed, fatherly lecture. He told Icarus, "Don't fly too high. The sun will melt the wax. Don't fly too low. The sea will soak the feathers. Just fly the boring middle path." Icarus nodded, sort of. Then they took off, soared into the air, felt free, very briefly. Then Icarus got excited. He forgot, flew higher and higher. No rescue, no second chance, just splash, lesson learned, probably too late. Moral: always follow instructions. The boring bureaucracy of Mount Olympus. Mount Olympus was supposed to be the divine epicenter of power and glory. But honestly, it functioned more like a very slow committee meeting that never ended. The gods met often, not to solve problems, but to argue over seating arrangements, titles, and which mortal deserved to be turned into a swan. Meetings looked like this. Zeus called everyone together by thunder. Hera asked why her seat wasn't centered. Poseidon spilled salt water on the floor. Hermes brought the agenda. No one read it. Ars interrupted frequently to propose unnecessary battles. Demeter complained about seasonal changes. Dionysus offered wine. No one refused. Every now and then, they reviewed mortal prayers. Most were ignored. Some were granted by accident. They also had a filing system, managed by Themis, goddess of divine law. Very organized, very ignored. Minutes were never recorded. Action items never followed up. The only consistency was ambiguous divine interference when the Argonauts got lost again. Before Google Maps and accurate star charts, there were Argonauts, Greek heroes who got on a magical ship called the Argo, hoping to retrieve the Golden Fleece. Not the most charismatic, not the smartest, but he had a boat, and that was enough. Their leader was Jason. The crew included Orpheus, who played music, Hercules, who left halfway through, Atalanta, who was fast but underappreciated, Castor and Pollux, who kept switching places, a guy who could smell storms. They set off, immediately got lost, stopped at several islands, angered minor kings, fought half-hearted monsters, a local witch with serious talent and absolutely no boundaries. Instead of fighting it, Jason accepted help from Medea. Eventually, they reached Colchis, where the Golden Fleece was guarded by a dragon. Twice, they escaped with the fleece, but then wandered even longer on the way back. Possibly took the wrong river, including Jason. By the time Jason returned, No one remembered why the fleece was important. The gods tried to modernize, poorly tired of being forgotten. The gods tried to stay relevant. Apollo started a poetry slam. It didn't catch on. Aphrodite opened a spa, but it only accepted doves as currency. Hermes launched a message delivery app, but it worked only during eclipses. To bright, very successful, until everyone forgot why they were there. The gods went back to what they knew best: meddling, disguising themselves as mortals, and quietly judging humanity. Artemis tried a forest retreat. No Wi-Fi, no visitors. Dionysus opened a wine bar, but Hades refused. Who preferred solitude and never answered emails, Mount Olympus even considered moving to a cloud. Server, I don't trust clouds, he muttered. The rebranding failed. The goddesses, not all goddesses, sought adoration or chaos. Some were quietly powerful, deeply private, and if we're being honest, just not very responsive. They had their temples, yes, but they were more likely to leave your offerings on read. Let's meet them now, slowly, one by one. She's the goddess equivalent of that one friend who never joins the group chat, but is always somehow appreciated. Hestia, the original do not disturb goddess of the hearth, home and barely showing up. Hestia did not join battles. She skipped divine drama. She kept the fire going, sat in her corner, and never, ever lost her temper. When offered a throne on Mount Olympus, she declined. Politely, she preferred quietude over politics. A bit extreme, yes, but effective. She had a complex calendar, and even more complex inbox. A lot of personal space. She warned every household, invisibly, yet no one ever saw her in a toga launch press statements. Artemis, goddess of the hunt, the moon, and not answering your DM is not because of rules, but because people were exhausting. And once they arrived, they usually couldn't leave. Artemis valued wilderness, moonlight, and personal space. She took a vow of chastity. She roamed the forests with her silent entourage of nymphs, avoided cities, declined invitations, and turned men into stags if they saw her bathing without permission. She had a moonlit aesthetic. No Wi-Fi, no small talk, just arrows and owls. She didn't yell. She didn't tweet. She just knew. What was fair? Persephone, queen of the underworld, part-time. Persephone lived 6 months above ground and 6 below. It was ignored. She didn't follow up. She just waited, quietly disappointed. Not because she was scary, but because she said just enough. While she did grow flowers and represent spring, her vibe was mostly, I'm not available right now. As queen of the underworld, she ruled alongside Hades in a very subdued palace. Visitors were rare. She answered questions like, maybe. That's not up to me. Let me check with the fates. She never did. Themis, the quiet judge in the margins. In temples with soft candlelight and very low foot traffic, Themis was the personification of divine law and order. She held scales, not because she liked weighing things, but because decisions required balance, long pauses, careful thought. She spoke rarely, but when she did, everyone stopped talking. She once tried to set up a scheduling system for all of Olympus. Nyx, the original ghost of Nyx, goddess of the night, was so powerful even Zeus hesitated around her. But you've probably never heard much about her, because she didn't explain herself. She arrived silently after sunset. No footsteps, no trumpet, just a night. They didn't throw lightning or seduce mortals. They just existed, calmly. She mothered many children's sleep hypnos, deaf thanatos, and others, but preferred to drift alone through the sky, whispering stars into place. Sometimes it listens, sometimes it stays home, and sometimes it just never checks its inbox. She was the embodiment of the phrase, "No response is a response." Final notes from the divine, quiet corner. These goddesses weren't loud. They weren't dramatic. They remind us that divine power doesn't always announce itself. The entire story of Greek mythology explained. Best Greek mythology documentary. Chapter 1. In the beginning chaos and the primordial beings tonight. We travel not by ship or winged sandals, but by thought, drifting slowly across the soft mists of time into the realm of Greek mythology. Long before the Olympians, before heroes, even before the earth took form as we know it, there was only chaos. Not chaos as in disorder, but chaos a vast, silent void, endless, formless, still. Floating in that quiet expanse was the potential for everything. Out of chaos came the first beings. Their union brought forth the Titans, 12 mighty beings like Oceanus, Hyperion, Rhea, and Cronus. When Uranus came to lie with Gaia, Cronus struck. So, one by one, he swallowed them, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon. The sky was separated from the earth. The age of the Titans began. He gave Cronus an emetic potion. Cronus vomited up the siblings, fully grown. And so, the age of the gods Olympians began. She wrapped a stone in swaddling cloth, then gave it to him instead. The Titans still ruled the cosmos, and Cronus would not give up his throne without resistance. It wasn't a war of thunder and spectacle, but one of attrition and endurance. The Titans stood atop Mount Orthes, the gods, newly freed. Gathered on Mount Olympus, Zeus was hidden away on the island of Crete, raised in secret by nymphs, fed honey and goat's milk. Earth itself groaned under the strain of the battles, and the heavens dimmed with smoke and ash. They also birthed terrifying beings, the Cyclops and the Hecatoncheires giants with many arms. Uranus, frightened of them, hid them deep within Gaia's belly. "Seek help," she said, "from those whom." Cronus had imprisoned the Cyclops and Hecatoncheires, still trapped in Tartarus, and in his hands, terrible and mighty. To Poseidon, they gave the trident a weapon to shake the seas. To Hades, the helm of darkness, allowing him to move unseen. With stealth and resolve, Zeus descended into the underworld and freed them. The earth, wide and open, remained shared among all. This hurt her, so she asked her children to help. Only a few, like Prometheus and Oceanus, were spared. There was Gaia, the earth, solid and nurturing. The Titans were struck down, not all at once, but one by one, as days turned to weeks and weeks to months. Tartarus, the deep abyss beneath the world. Eros, the gentle force of attraction and love. Nyx, the night, and Erebus, the darkness. They emerged not with a shout, but with the soft unfolding of being. From Gaia came Uranus, the sky, and she became his partner. Only Cronus, the youngest Titan, agreed. With a sickle of adamantine, he waited in silence. Cronus ruled. He married his sister Rhea, but a prophecy warned him that his own child would overthrow him. His voice was the rumble of clouds. He was not always just, nor always kind, but his role was central, to uphold laws, oaths, and the sacred order of things. But when Zeus was born, Rhea tricked Cronus. When he came of age, he returned not with fire and fury, but with cunning. Chapter 2. The Titanomachy and the rise of Olympus. Now that Zeus had freed his siblings, the sky once again stirred. What followed was the Titanomachy, a slow, grinding war that lasted 10 quiet years. Each day brought the same skirmishes, stalemates, silent retreats into shadowed caves. Then came a shift. Gaia, the ancient earth, whispered advice to Zeus. The Cyclops, in gratitude, gave him a gift, the thunderbolt, blinding, booming. With these, the tide turned, the gods pressed forward. Finally, the war ended. The Titans were cast into Tartarus, bound in chains behind bronze gates. Zeus, victorious, claimed the sky. Poseidon, the sea. Hades, the underworld. The new age began, the age of Olympus. Chapter 3. The Olympians and their calm domains. The Olympians rose to power, not as chaotic war gods, but as rulers of balance and domain. The world now had order. Zeus, king of the gods, sat upon his throne atop Mount Olympus. Beside him was Hera, his sister and queen, goddess of marriage and fidelity. She moved through Olympus with quiet strength, guarding the institution of family. He wandered the deep, his trident stirring whirlpools and shaping islands. Though tempestuous, he also brought calm. Tides and guided sailors by moonlight. Poseidon, lord of the sea, ruled over salt and foam. He simply kept the cycle of life moving: birth, death, rest. Her footsteps brought sprouting wheat. Her tears, the rain. When her daughter Persephone was stolen by Hades, the earth fell into mourning. He brought prophecy and healing. His twin sister, Artemis, roamed the woods with quiet feet, guarding animals and maidens alike. She represented not just love, but allure, persuasion, and the quiet ache of longing. Thus came the seasons. Hades, distant and somber, watched over the realm of the dead. He did not torment, nor did he trick. Demeter, goddess of grain, blessed the harvest. Athena, born from Zeus's head, sprang forth with wisdom and armor. But she was no brute warrior. She guided artisans, philosophers, and city builders. Apollo, god of the sun and music, played the lyre as the daylight traveled. Aphrodite, goddess of beauty, was born of sea foam.